to look at the legal mindset video to it. Um, we can look at it and see what the facts are for everything. Because what's going on is pretty fucked up, to be honest. Um,
The revelations by Ironmouse and many other of the talents at Vshojo may very well end that VTubing company. Of course, I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney, and this is Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. This is an insane saga that really, it even peaks perhaps what is going down and what went down last year with Doki Bird and with Niji Sanji, insofar as this is looking like it will end this VTubing company, Vshojo, completely, and because we're seeing a massive pool of talent that is looking to exodus from that company. Now, just understand this is a Fast Facts pre-recorded video, but I recorded this after listening to Kson's stream where she was interviewing with the Japanese quote-unquote branch, we'll talk about that, CEO. So we're going to go through all the facts today and really stick to the legal analysis. If you want to see the full version where I'm doing more, playing more video, I play all of Ironmouse's video and I play some other stuff as well. You check out my live version, but this is the abbreviated version for those that want to get just down to the facts. Yes. And of course, I've got a PowerPoint. So with this case, obviously it all started with the mouse. And there are two clear things that she dropped in her message that are legally relevant. First is that she has not been paid wages. So she's owed back wages. She's not been paid for a long time. And these payments that she's owed are in delinquency. They've been owed to her for a long time. She hasn't been paid. And this is something that has been mirrored by other talents. We now have talents such as Kson coming out and saying, I have not been paid for a long time. In fact, I believe she said September of last year, a very, very long time without payments, which is severe, which is significant. So there is an extended period of time with which people have not paid out to the talents. That's a massive, massive problem in and of itself. But the other great problem, and the problem that can have huge criminal liability, is the potential fraud related to the charity, related to the Immune Deficiency Foundation that Ironmouse has always been so vocal for, because it's the cause that represents research that would help people like her and give them a brighter future and hope. And it really was something that she was so invested in. And they decided to take $500,000 and not pay that out to charity. Whatever they did with that, it was not paid to charity. And that is a massive, massive issue. And that's an issue that can see people behind bars, that can have criminal penalties. Absolutely.
I hope it does.
Once again, these are our allegations at this point. But based on the number of talents speaking up, based on the number of talents that have removed the Vshojo branding, we have to, at this point, assume there is some sort of substance behind these allegations. Of course, they are going to have to fight these out. They are going to have to prove this in court or prove this through the regulatory process. However, at this point, going forward and through the scope of this video,
I mean, what's there to prove? It's like, one, it's the lawyer approved for her to say that. Two, even the immune deficiency was asking questions about the payment. So
understand that I am taking the allegations as credible. For whatever argument you may make of they're not proven yet, whatever, I understand you, but we're going to take them as credible for the purpose of this analysis. So let's continue here. So we had obviously Ironmouse speak up, and then we had Kson get on with the JP CEO. Now this was very enlightening and actually gives us more of the business side of what is going on at Vshojo. It's very clear from this that Vshojo is in financial hot water, that they were not profitable. And whatever the distinction was between JP and US, it's very important to note that there was no official legal distinction. That is an internal distinction, the same as a department, for example, saying HR or whatever else, right? Or janitorial staff. It's an internal distinction. It still fell under the control and is the legal responsibility of the headquarters in San Francisco. So the JP branch, as much as that might be a certain amount of talents that was managed by this quote unquote CEO, was not distinguished financially. So those funds that were coming in were being slushed together. So whatever profit JP was making was not offsetting clearly the losses they were taking on the US side or with their other talents. So as a whole, it seems they were in financial dire straits. Now, one big thing that was brought up during this was that the staff was paid and not the talent. There is a very important reason for that, which we're going to get into, which is all of the talents are designated, and this is for almost all VTubing companies. I have not seen one contract, and I've reviewed all of them, including the Vshojo contract, Niji Sanji, HoloLive, Vactor, all the greatest hits from big to small, Phase Connect. I've seen all of them. I haven't seen a single contract that has said these people are employees. We consider them employees. They all try to make them independent contractors. That's very important because when it comes to fighting wages and paying wages, you have to pay employees under labor law, whether it's US law, Japanese law, really all around the world. You've got to pay out those wages. But when it comes to independent contractors, well, you can shaft them and then they've got to come and sue you or bring an action against you or a claim against you to try to get those back. It puts a massive burden on them to claim those amounts of money. Now, I have, since the Niji Sanji crisis, been screaming from the top of the hills that this is BS.
Yes,
I'll put some money in the swear jar for that one. These people are employees. Whether you consider them full-time or part-time employees, they are under the control and authority of these VTubing companies. Now, I understand that there was a lot more anonymity at Vshojo than other companies, but you might consider them in that case more like a part-time employee than a full-time employee that's completely controlled by the company. And in that case, they would still be owed wages under a normal analysis. And mind you, just because a contract says that you are an independent contractor does not mean that a particular state or country might not look at the situation, might not look at all the factors and say, under our law, we're going to consider them an employee. It's very important. And I do think in the VTubing industry going forward, this is a massive lesson that all VTubing talent should be considered employees. They should push for being employees. They should say, no, I'm an employee if I'm going to work for your company because you need to pay me and you need to be liable if you do not pay me. And I don't think the Japanese CEO, listening to him, is the villain here. He's clearly not at the top of the rung. He's not the CEO or CFO or COO or CTO. He's at a lower rung of responsibility. He certainly cannot make shots for the entire company. That was not his responsibility. And certainly, by the way, none of the talents are liable for this. This is something where they are the victims, and they do deserve your support and your appreciation. And I will say this about all of them: ironmouse, Kson, Henya, everybody, Mitsubishi, everybody. They do deserve your support and love in this time, and also your understanding that they can't say the things that I can say because they're under a different level of scrutiny. Now, I do hope with some right legal maneuvers, they can finally speak up. And we're going to talk about that today in the way they may be able to speak up. But right now, understand and be patient with them. They need to work with their lawyers in their jurisdiction or in perhaps California, which is a jurisdiction for Vshojo, where I think is very ripe to bring suits and claims, etc. They need to work with their own lawyers to get this done. So be patient with them to get to that point where they will be able to speak. I do believe that time is going to come sooner than later. So let's continue with this. The best quote I think from this is "Talent first, my ass." That was probably the best Kson quote out there, period. And I love Kson. I'm definitely a fan. So one important thing here is that Vshojo is an American company. Now we've covered Niji Sanji, we've covered Cobra Corporation, big Japanese corporations. And one issue with those corporations is they're Japanese. And if the talent is American or Canadian or really non-Japanese at all, it's really, really difficult to come at those companies. Yeah. This is not the problem for Vshojo. Vshojo is an American company, and they're an American company headquartered in one of the states with the most strong consumer protections out there, or strong worker protections, employee protections that are very, very broad out there in all the United States. So this is a massive difference. And especially since many of the talents, particularly ironmouse, being a American citizen, right? Puerto Rico, still a citizen of the United States, and still able to bring claims, fully able to bring claims in California court, particularly related to labor. This is something where it is ripe for conflict, ripe for either a lawsuit, criminal filings, regulatory filings, because they are in America. And this is why I say they are sunk. This is why I say this is not an Niji Sanji situation. This is not an any color. This is not a Hololive situation. Whatever else. And in those situations with Niji Sanji, I told everybody, hey, when Doki Bird went down, this is not going to be the end of Niji Sanji by any stretch. Same thing when there's bumps in the road with Hololive, right? When Gura leaves, it's not going to be the end of Hololive. However, this will be the end of Vshojo. This is very, very much going to tank them because of this and because of their financial situation. And mind you, I will point out one other thing. They were founded in 2020. And what was happening in 2020, and I say this as a corporate attorney who was previously working in a law firm related to issuing bonds that were used by governments and corporations, and then working in-house and seeing a lot of borrowing and corporate debt. During that period of time, corporations were borrowing at insanely low rates. They were drunk on debt and drunk on almost free money that was under the cost of inflation. So hell, why not? Let's just borrow as much as possible. I have no doubt that they were highly leveraged going into this, and they were highly hyped up coming off of the kind of everybody's on the internet during COVID era, and thinking that was going to continue forever. And their financial projections were perhaps unrealistic given the fact that that was a temporary period of time that was over, and there was definitely bumps in the VTuber market as a whole as people no longer had to be online all the time. And so, yes, the VTuber market did not grow as it was projected to grow based on 2020 numbers or based on 2019 numbers, et cetera. So I think this number of the founding is actually relevant, and the fact that they are a relatively new company and they're private. So once again, we don't have a lot of the disclosures that we required of a public company. But let's talk about the contract. So I have seen a Vshojo contract. Now, in full disclosure, it was based on a previous contract. It is not anyone active. So it's an older contract. So they may have changed things in the contract. So I'm basing it on what I said. However, I don't think they've changed certain things. Number one, they do have certain NDA and confidentiality provisions based on that. I don't think they would have deleted that. I don't think they would have removed that. Those are in the contract. The other most important thing is it does frame them as independent contractors, as non-employees. So that is a super important factor, that they are not called employees, because when you are an employee, you get the protection of labor laws, you get the protection of regulation. All of those things don't necessarily apply to independent contractors. Now, different states handle this differently, different countries handle this differently. If anywhere in the United States is going to handle this differently, it's probably California, which is going to look at that and say, oh, no, these were really employees, these really weren't independent contractors. So I think that doesn't exclude it, but it is important for the intent here, because the intent was always to shaft them out of payment, was always to not pay them. So let's continue here. So labor law, we're going to talk about this real quick. So this is about the claims for unpaid wages. And once again, a very important factor here is California, particularly if you're going to file it there, which is where Vshojo is headquartered, they don't have any restrictions as to residency status or et cetera. So you can file a labor claim there. Even the people that are part of the corporation that are non-American might have a potential, if they consult with their attorney, to file claims in California in some way, shape, or fashion. Once again, I do believe all the girls that I've heard of, as particularly ironmouse, have competent lawyers, and they should listen to their lawyers. Obviously, listen to their lawyers over anything I say. This is more education for the public and education for people in general. But I do believe there's a possibility for them to make claims in California, and that would be huge for them. That would open the door to so much. So even if you have a contract, that's not going to prevent you from claiming, hey, you need to pay me these wages, right? Or reporting criminal activity. So reporting, hey, they didn't give this money to charity, and we knew it. And we saw it, we knew it, we have testimony, we'll be witnesses against this. We'll go to the federal or state criminal cases for these people. They can still testify to that. There's nothing stopping them. The NDA is not going to stop them. Nothing is preventing them from reporting that crime. In fact, if they try to retaliate for that, Vshojo would be punished. You cannot try to retaliate against somebody for reporting a crime. That's not okay anywhere in the US and in most countries in general. So the process for this would be to gather documentation and witnesses, which they're probably doing right now. Their lawyers, particularly ironmouse, is probably gathering a lot of documentation, getting witnesses together, and then you'd report it to the labor commissioner. In this case, probably the labor commissioner of California. And after that, there's a required mediation. Now, this might be why they're saying wait, why ironmouse said in her video, hey, we need to get to a certain part of the legal process. It might be because they want to go to that mediation, see if they can get a settlement, see if Vshojo can make this right. Otherwise, if that fails, there's going to be a civil lawsuit. They can bring a civil lawsuit, in which case we'd all get that information. It'd be public information. We'd be able to talk about it. We'd be able to see everything that's going on. It would be a nightmare for them, from Vshojo, if they aren't already bankrupt, which we'll eventually touch on that topic.
Yeah,
so
I think they're gonna go bankrupt.
Then we got the silencing the mouse, and as well as the other talent. There are laws that prevent retaliation against employees reporting unlawful acts. You've probably heard of whistleblower protections. That's a whistleblower. Iron Mouse is a whistleblower saying there is something illegal going on here, i.e., taking money that's supposed to go to charity, whether that's embezzlement or whatever else, or a fraudulent transfer, like that can be reported, and there's no way you can retaliate against that. Also, there's another California law that's passed that arguably could prevent NDAs from silencing the employees in regards to reporting bad workplace behavior. So saying, hey, we're not being paid, and they took this money from charity. The California law is pretty clear that the NDA cannot stop them from saying that. Now, there are other things that they could argue the NDA could stop them from talking about, stuff like personal relationships or personal interactions, maybe for now, but that NDA is not going to silence them from speaking out on what is clearly illegal. Further, aside from whistleblower protections, you can't stop the reporting of crime. I cannot say that enough. Reporting a crime is always permissible, and no.
I'm glad they're fucking coming out about this, because this is bullshit. Oh wait, what the fuck was that?
Jellyfish Lighting is an all-in-one
permanent
exterior lighting system.
Continue.
Through an app on your phone, you are able to decorate for all holidays like Christmas.
Facts. So beyond that, let's get into what's going on with the criminal liability, and that could fall on the corporation, or that could fall on people like Justin, the gun run Ignacio, the CEO. Once again, depending on his level of culpability and the culpability of the COO, the CTO, the other officers of the corporation, this criminal liability could fall not just on, the corporation as a whole, but on these individuals, depending on how complicit they were in this scheme and how much knowledge they had of this. So let's get into the criminal side, shall we? So we've got obviously civil claims, which this is regarding the $500,000 that was not given to charity, that was taken, and God knows what they did with it. Probably, by the way, my best guess on what they did with this is they are leveraged, and they were used that money to pay their current expenses, and they were over leveraged. So they were hoping to pay them back in the future and make some miracle money and pay them back in the future.
See, that's what I was thinking too. In my video, I think that they used that money to pay off stuff they were owing, and were hoping that they would make it back in time to be able to pay off the charity.
Future and get everything right. They didn't do that. They didn't give the money to the charity. Now that's once again, it's my speculation about what they did, but based on what kson stream, which just happened just a couple minutes ago, I stopped watching it. It seems they're in financial trouble. And if you're in financial trouble, what are you going to do? You're going to take the money and you're going to use it to pay immediate expenses, probably staff, because they needed to pay them or they'd be hit by labor law restrictions. That's why the JP CEO got paid and kson didn't. So that's what I think they did with that money. Now, if they did that with that money, there's three things that can happen here. Civil claims, both by the donors themselves and by Mouse and anybody else who's a big donor or gave money, federal crimes, and their state crimes. Let's talk about civil claims. So first of all, donors can file suit against Vshojo. So if they donated money or you donated money, you're out there, you donated money, you might want to just have a chit chat with a lawyer and talk about what you did, how much money you gave, and what was going on with that. And then there's claims, once again, these are different types of civil claims for misrepresentation, breach of contract, fraudulent.
So hear that? If you donated to any of the Vshojo the fundraisers that they didn't pay, you can talk to a lawyer about that. That's interesting.
Transfer, particularly fraudulent transfer, is at play here because of the large sum of money, because it's a massive amount of money. Misrepresentation, because they misrepresented that money was going to go to the charity and they didn't give it there. And breach of contract, because there's an implicit contract. There's a fiduciary duty there to take that money and give it to the charity. And they broke that understanding. They broke that agreement. And Iron Mouse could also likely bring a claim as well, because once again, she was part of that, she I'm sure donated to that as well herself, so she probably has status as a donor, but also just to clear herself from that and saying, hey, look, this money was supposed to go there, it didn't. Let me put this claim in there to make it very clear that they're doing wrong. So I think Iron Mouse also could back up the donos in that. Let's go to federal crimes. This is the fun one. This is the one where they're going to end up paying the money from behind bars. Charity fraud is typically investigated by the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. Now, oftentimes they're working in conjunction with the state attorney general. So those working as kind of a team in order to look into all types of charity fraud and really do the investigation. Once again, we are very preliminary. We're at the allegation phase. This would all need to be investigated. We need to see proof. We need to see documents. But the people who get that are the FTC and the state attorney general. And I think the state attorney general of California, which I'm sure many people are going to contact after this, will be very, very interested in hearing this case. $500,000 from a immunodeficiency charity. I'm sorry. That is deplorable. And that's disgusting. And once again, I try to keep this to objective legal analysis, but the scope of this really does give me a righteous indignation with the amount of money that was taken here from a charity. So depending on the nature of the fraud, a breach of that duty to deliver that money can violate several federal laws. So it can be wire fraud. Wire fraud is one of the easiest ones to get them for. And certainly if they wanted to go down that route, and it is a case where they received the money via the internet, because wire fraud is not just old school wires and telephones, it's the internet. They got them, boys. They got them on that one. Money laundering, potentially making false statements about where the money would go, misrepresentations. Also the FTC Act, which involves various regulation of money regarding charities. All of those things they can be hit with, and they could get real jail time on this. This is serious jail time in real prison. This is not fun, down under the sun. This is all potential prison time for people at Vshojo. Beyond that, there's state law. There's California Penal Code 503, 501, 515 regarding embezzlement. So assuming that they took the money and they embezzled it and they use it elsewise, that's right there. Breach of fiduciary duty.
Wouldn't
because
that
they
be
have
essentially
a duty.
what he said that, and I also agree with, and I said in my video, they use that money for something else.
Trustee of that money to give it over to the charity. That was their duty, fiduciary duty. Anybody who, for example, is holding money for somebody else. So if you gave money to a lawyer and that lawyer is supposed to go pay for real estate, and they don't pay for real estate, they pay for, cocaine and whatever else.
And hookers.
That's going to be a huge, massive problem. So that would be a breach of fiduciary duty. This was a breach of fiduciary duty in the charity sense. Yeah. Misleading and deceptive fundraising, I think that speaks for itself. They said the money was going to go one place. It didn't go there. Also, reporting and regulatory violations. So how do they do their taxes? How do they report this? They needed to report this to the government, to the regulatory authorities, saying, hey, we donated this money to charity. Did they take a tax write-off for this? Did they write this off on their taxes? Did they make a false financial report?
They better not, dude. That is the biggest, I outed myself kind of bullshit.
That's massive. And the last one, and the two things you're afraid of, even the Joker is afraid of, is the IRS.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
and the tax law violations, both. And the tax law, by the way, is at the state and the federal level. So it's both levels. But tax law is perhaps the most massive place, because if they chose to try to take a write-off on this or to falsify their taxes, oh boy, the tax man does not F around.
The tax man
does not F around. And that's where the people could see very, very serious state consequences. Now, let's talk about the other girls and a little bit about what went on with them. Obviously, a lot of them have pulled out of the branding. They've no longer branded themselves as Vshojo.
So pretty much from what I've seen, it's like everyone pretty much just dipped. Like they're like, nah, dude, this is bullshit, and left.
They're going to have talks on this. Obviously, kson had a very clear talk. I think Henya is going to talk, and some others are going to have a commentary as well, which I may have follow-up videos on that. But it very much seems like these talents were, especially since kson said she was shafted out of wages. She didn't get bullshit. Paid her wages.
I still think that's
in that case, I think they need to file claims as well. I think all of the talents need to consider, particularly in California, filing labor law claims. And once they do that, the other thing that's really going to be awesome for them is all those no retaliation clauses apply to them, so they can start speaking more. Now they need to talk to their attorneys and make sure this works for them under their situation. They're personal attorney is comfortable with this, but assuming they are, once they do that, once the claim is initiated, they will be able to say a little bit more. Now, there's another factor here. This applies to Iron Mouse and all the other girls and why they're not going to talk. If you're going to go into a lawsuit situation or you're going to sue, you want to shut up. You want to say as little as possible, only what you can say or have to say. So even if these girls can speak technically, or they could say it and they're not going to get punished under the law, or Vshojo's not going to be able to sue them for breaching NDA, there may be other good reasons for them not talking. However, that might be able to open up them explaining a little bit more to their audience and giving a little bit more context. And maybe at some point they want to do that. So that's something there. But beyond that, they're owed wages. They're all owed wages. They need to get paid. They need to get paid the money that they're owed. And I say wages, although wages people usually associate with employees, and payments are usually the independent contractors in terms of the language there. But to me, these people are not just amazing talents. They're workers. They're true employees that are dedicating a significant amount of their time, and they are giving some control and authority over to this entity, this entity to direct them to do certain things and to take certain actions. And beyond that, the financial arrangement between them is one that I think they could argue, particularly with the restrictiveness of the contract, that set them up as employees. Even further, put Vshojo on the defensive. If all of them file claims in California, labor law claims, it's on Vshojo to prove that they're not employees. So put Vshojo on the defensive.
Yeah.
Don't allow Vshojo to take the offensive. Take the offensive against Vshojo. Take it to them. Take it to their court. Push them. And I think that is the right emphasis as they go forward with this. And I'm sure there's lots of California attorneys that would help them. And frankly, if any of the girls needed any help finding a California attorney, I'm happy to try to hook them up and recommend them for them. But that said, I think the girls do need to consider their options and speak with local attorneys. Beyond that, this is a big one, especially after the case on stream. I think they need to really worry about Vshojo declaring bankruptcy, because based on the financial situation, as explained by the JP CEO, it looks like they're not doing good. And what I am worried, and the strategy that came out of case on stream, which I think is putting together, is they are not paying the independent contractors because they're planning to declare bankruptcy. I have seen this before as corporate counsel, as evil corporate counsel from my back days when I did that. That is something corporations do. When they're going under, they stop paying out because they know they're just going to declare bankruptcy. And what happens when you declare bankruptcy? Well, there's two types of debt. There's secured debt and there's unsecured debt. Secured debt gets paid first. The stuff like mortgages or something like a lien on a car, right? It's secured by something. There's something they can take. That's paid first. Then there's going to be employees' wages. Those are paid. But anything else, including independent contractors, is unsecured and dischargeable. So the big thing they're banking for is to get to discharge the payments because they label them as independent contractors. That's their strategy. I mean, I see it clear as day. And to me, the question is not only are they going to declare bankruptcy, it's how quickly are they going to declare bankruptcy. In fact, if I was the CEO of Vshojo, I'd be running right now into the bankruptcy court to declare it right now so they can stop all payments. And now that would put it on them to battle back. That would put it on the talents. So I think the Vshojo response is going to be to immediately declare bankruptcy. And why is that? They lost their largest talent. There's no way they can financially recover. You can't explain to me how Vshojo, who is already losing money by the own admission of their staff, by the own admission of the JP CEO, is already losing money. They're already not able to pay, and suddenly they're going to lose all their talent and be able to pay? No one's going to give this company a loan, especially with this bad PR. Are you kidding me? No, this is a clear bankruptcy scenario. And in bankruptcy, they're going to try to discharge that. Now, there's a little ray of hope, a tiny little smidgen of hope, right? Is that there is a special exemption for unpaid commissions to independent contractors. So debt qualifies for priority status, meaning it gets higher status than unsecured debt, if during the 12 months before the bankruptcy, 75% of the contractor's own earnings were from the debtor. So in this case, that would apply to most of the girls, I imagine. Now, maybe they have other earnings or other money from elsewhere, but if they were making most of their money from Vshojo, that is a big exemption that could fly in there. Once again, it doesn't guarantee they get paid out, but it does give a glimmer of hope if they go the bankruptcy route, which I think it's looking like right now. That's what I've got for today for the Fast Facts version, guys. This has been insane. I will be on top of this. Check out the live if you want to get all the questions, the banter, all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And I will catch you on the...
So, damn, from that video alone, the girls can pretty much like... The girls need to get legal. They need to sue. If they hit all those requirements, which I'm pretty sure they do... they could sue. They could get that shit out there. Damn, dude. Like, I think Vshojo is cooked, dude. They're cooked. Thank you for watching the video, guys. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what else you want me to listen to, and I'll catch you next time.